Good afternoon, class. Today I'm going to ask you some questions. Whoever knows the answer will give their answers in the chat box, and to whom I will instruct, only that student will unmute himself and will give the answer of the question. After answering the question, you have to mute yourself back. So let's begin with the first question. So, what do you see in the picture that's shown alongside the question? Very good, Raki. You have given the right answer. Now, our next question. How do these flowers look? Jafroon, unmute yourself and answer the question. Very good, Jafroon. So flowers look bright and colorful. Now, our next question. Can you tell me the name of our national flower? Raki, unmute yourself. Yes, yes, you have given the right answer. Very good. Now, students, have you heard any poem about the lotus? So today we are going to discuss about the poem The Lotus. Lotus is written by Toru Dutt. So students pay attention in the book while I'm reciting the poem. Love came to Flora asking for a flower that would of flowers be undisputed queen. The lily and the rose long, long had been rivals for that high honor. Bards of power had sung their claims, the rose can never tar, like the pale lily with her Juno mien. But is the lily lovelier? Thus between flower factions rang the strife in Psyche's bower. Give me a flower delicious as rose, and stately as lily in her pride. But of what color? Rose red. Love first chose, then prayed. No lily white, or both provide. And Flora gave the lotus, rose red, died. And lily white, the queenless flower that blows. Now, students, it's time for word meaning. So, Raki, unmute yourself and read out the first word. Very good. It's strife. And now read out its meaning. Very good, Raki. So strife means competition. So as you can see in the picture that's shown alongside the word, here some people are competing in a race. So that's indicating its meaning. Now, a next word. Jafroon, unmute yourself and read out the second word. Very good. Now read out its meaning. Very good, Jafroon. Now mute yourself back. Bards means a poet. So as you can see, the picture showing William Wordsworth. There's a picture of William Wordsworth, who's a very renowned poet. So that the pic is indicating the word's meaning. Now, third word, Raki, unmute yourself and read out the third word. Very good, Raki. You pronounced it correctly. Now, it's read out its meaning. Very good, Raki. Now, so as you can see, there's a the pig along the that is inserted along with the bird. It's showing the inside view of a palace which is looking very grand and impressive. So you can relate to that the meaning of it to meaning of the word. Now, a next word. So, Jafrun, unmute yourself and read out the fourth word. Very good. You pronounced it correctly. Now read out its meaning. Very good. So rival is your competitor. As you can see in the picture, two people are competing against each other. Now, a next word. Raki, unmute yourself and read out the last word. Very good. Now, read out its meaning. Very good, Raki. So, as you can see in the pic, so there's a place which is looking very pleasant and it's also shady as well. Now, we'll move on further. Now, it's your time to recite the poem. So, Raki, unmute yourself and start reciting the poem. Yes, Raki, why you stopped? Are you able to see now? Juno mean. Yet it's Juno mean. Very good, Raki, but you need to work on your recitation. Uh, Try to recite the poem at least 2 to 3 times at your home with proper voice modulation and with the rhyme. Okay. Now, Jafrun, unmute yourself and you read out the first 4 lines of the poem. Very good. Very good, Jafrun. You read it well, but you also need to work on your voice modulation and rhyme of the poem. Now we'll move on further. So we have appreciation questions here. So students, tell me what figure of speech is used in the poem? Raki, unmute yourself and tell the answer. Can you hear me, Raki? Okay. Jafrun, you unmute yourself and answer the question. Okay, Jafrun. So, no ways. I will tell the answer. The figure of speech that is used in this poem is personification, personification, simile, and metaphor. These are the three figures of speech that are used in the poem. Now, our next question is what is the theme of the poem? Raki, unmute yourself and answer the question. So, the theme of the poem is nature and religion. It is based on nature and religion. What the poet is trying to describe in the poem? Unmute yourself and answer the question, Raki. Very good. And Raki, now you unmute yourself and answer the question. And what's the title? The the Lotus. So, the poet is trying to describe the beauty of lotus, and through lotus, he is trying to establish a connection with the religion also. Now, moving on further, here we have some difficult lines of the poem, which you all are facing problems with. So, I will explain them to you. Our first line is love came to Flora asking for a flower. So here in this line, love is personified as the goddess of love, who is Aphrodite, who came to goddess of flower, Flora, asking for a flower. So goddess Aphrodite, she is the goddess of love, who she come to Flora and ask for a flower. This line means this. Okay, students, have you understood? Just tell me in yes or no. Are you able to hear me? I just explained the meaning of this line. Did you understood or not? Yes or no? Okay, I will explain it again. Just listen carefully and pay attention in the class. Love came to Flora asking for a flower. So here the love means it is personified as a goddess of love, who is Aphrodite, who came to Flora, the goddess of flower, asking for a flower. So have you understood now, Jafrun? Okay. So our next line is bards of power had sung their claims. So this line explains that there was a conflict going on between the rose and lily to claim their superiority. So they use their powers, spiritual powers, against each other to sung their claims to for the queenliest flower. Have you understood? Just answer in yes or no. Yeah. Okay, okay. So next line. The rose can never tower like the pale lily with her Juno mean. So this line means that the lily here states that the rose can never compare itself with the lily, as the lily stands like stately with pride, like the Juno mean. Juno is the personified as the queen in Roman mythology. So lily is personified as the queen here. So have you understood this line now, students? Answer in yes or no. Raki, unmute yourself and answer. Okay, okay. So now we'll come to the next line. Thus, between the flower factions rang the strife in Sykes' bower. So this line explains that there started a conflict between the flowers, and formed some factions, means groups among each other, uh, and take to took part of some groups came to the towards to the side of a rose, and some are supporting the lily. Now we'll move on further. It's time for central idea questions. But so before asking the questions, I will explain it. I will give you the central idea of the poem. So students, listen carefully. Toru Dutt was an educated young woman who traveled to Britain and France during her childhood. So British literature and culture influenced her, and it is also demonstrated in her various works, including this poem also, The Lotus. In this poem, she presents the idea that the lotus is the most beautiful of all flowers, and in order to establish the superiority of here he or she also tries to establish the superiority of Hindu religion over the other world religions through lotus. The lotus begins it the poem begins with the conflict between the two flowers, that rose and the lily flower. So the goddess of love, who is Aphrodite, and she visits the goddess of flower, who is Flora, and she asks for a flower to her, which is the queenliest of all. Queenliest means which is the most beautiful flower and superior flower among all the flowers. So both Lily and Rose here presented themselves as the most queenliest flower. They are trying to present themselves in the as the most queenliest flower, and for that they use their spiritual powers to establish their superiority. The rose is described as a never reaching the lily because lily has a strong will demeanor, like she stands like a queen. The lily stands like a queen with pride. So let's come to the poem through. So in the line 8, we reach the climax. Here comes the climax of the poem, where all the flowers, they form cliques, means they form groups among themselves, because they started a conflict for who's supporting the rose and who's supporting the lily. So after then, finally the solution was found by Flora, who's the goddess of flowers. She created a flower with the characteristics of rose and lily both, and which is the lotus flower. Have you understood, students? Am I, can you hear me? Raki, unmute yourself and answer. So have you understood? Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Whoever knows the answer will give the answer. Okay. So our first question is, what is the name of the poem? Raki, unmute yourself and answer the question. What is, okay, very good. You have given the correct answer. So the name of the poem is The Lotus. So our next question, what is the name of the poet? I'm asking. Yes, yes, Raki. And very good, Raki. You have given the right answer. The name of the poet is Toru Dutt. So our next question, give the central idea of the poem. Raki, unmute yourself and give a short central idea of this poem. Yes. Through this poem, he is a very good. You have very good. So the poet here describes the lotus, and through lotus, he is trying to establish the superiority of Hindu religion over other world religions. Now we'll move on further. So here we have rhyming words. To whom I will instruct, that student will unmute himself and will read out the words. Okay. So our first word, Jafrun, unmute yourself and read out the word. Can you hear me, Jafrun? Okay. But when I will instruct, then after then you will read out the rhyming word. Okay. So our next word. Now Raki, unmute yourself and read out the second word. And it's rhyming word. Very good. So power and tower. Next, Jafrun, unmute yourself and read out the third word. Very good. And it's rhyming word. Very good. So we'll move on to our next word. Now Raki, unmute yourself and read out the fourth word. And it's rhyming word. Rose and chose. Very good. Now read out our last word. Jafrun, unmute yourself. And it's a rhyming word. Very good. So we'll move on further now. It's time for your home assignment. That's your homework. So your first homework is you have to write the summary of this poem, The Lotus. The next homework is you have to make sentences from the words that are given below. Let's see the words. So our words are honor, strife, delicious. Fourth word is undisputed, and the last word is bower. Thank you, class. So that's all for today's class.